think we should not waste the time since Peter has, I think, much more to say than only for 45 minutes. I will give you 2 hours, if you want. If you like. I think to Hungarians, Peter Revesz is very well known. Also, he left, I think, Hungary much earlier.
Yes, I was 15 years old.
Okay, fine. Yeah. Okay, fine. Because of the career started with being a pupil of Peter Kanellakis. That was one of the real important database theoreticians. I think he died in 96 or so.
95, yeah.
Peter has, at least according to the DPLP record and the Microsoft academic record, 196 papers. You have to have 4 more papers. So to round up, 66 conference papers, 23 journal papers, 4,700 citations. But it is unfair to say this number because of one of his papers is cited almost 1,000 times. That is really a good record of. It was a survey of constraint databases, I think.
Constraint databases.
Yeah, a long time ago. And if I look now in this room, Peter is the second one, according to the age or the length of time I know people. I got somehow introduced each other in '95, last century.
Yes, yes,
but
yes.
I'm really happy to have you here, and I'm really proud of being somehow known to you.
Okay, thank you very much for the introduction. And being here in Advis is very special. As many times I have been here in this group. So let me talk about this talk, spatio-temporal data mining of major European river names and mountain names reveals their Near Eastern and African origins. Now, I can honestly say that all my life I've been very interested in rivers. For those who are Hungarians, they get the joke because my last name, Revesz, means ferryman. Takes you across the rivers, okay? So who could be more interested in rivers than ferrymen who do that every day? But this is a higher level thing, so this is data mining and computer science. And the major question here is where European toponyms, namely river and mountain names, come from. And this is associated with the question, what is the earliest language of Europe that survives in toponyms? Now, this problem actually has been studied by many people. So there have been many theories and proposals, and of course there are so many river names and so many mountain names in Europe that you have some indication of a lot of languages and a lot of different backgrounds. So these include, for example, Indo-European etymologies, mainly by Hans Krahe, Basque etymologies, Theo Vennemann, Scythian etymologies, Catherine Cegledi. This later one is focused on Carpathian Basin. And here is a sample map from Krahe's work, where he mapped all the river names starting with AL and ALM. And these are shown by locations. So there are plenty of them. They really form a European-wide range, mostly. Now, Krahe concentrated on Indo-European roots, and although it's contains many locations, but for example, Greece and most of the Balkans are left out in this study. So something is really missing in this group. Venneman's theory, called the Vasconic substratum theory, is also very interesting. And he has found some etymologies deriving from the Basque language. And he supposed that the Proto-Basques arrived to Western Europe after the Ice Age, somewhere from Africa. Now, this is something that is quite controversial. So recent studies actually in archaeogenetics indicate that the Basques are early farmers. They arrived as a farmer group and not earlier hunting-gathering groups right after the Ice Age ended. And there are also some linguistic connections between Basque and some Caucasian languages, so it's not really clear that they really came from Africa. As I mentioned, Catherine Seglady was working on names, mostly in the Carpathian Basin, mostly Hungarian-related names. She collected over 20,000 toponyms from the Chuvash area. This is near the Ural Mountains, and compared those with those found around here. And this is a quote from her abstract. We examined the geographical names of Chuvash area, and we found some connections between those and the Carpathian Basin, and she focused on a few river names like Ister, the old name of the Danube. Now, this is also one theory of origins, okay? Now, all of these theories have something true in it, obviously, okay? So there are so many rivers, so many mountain names, that everybody can basically find something, but the question is, which toponyms are really the earliest? How old are they? So these are questions that we need to answer. And the problem is that there are just too many names, as I said. We need to somehow select the earliest ones and estimate their age. Now, this is exactly what is done in a recent study by Karsten Busts, and he collected 210 river names, only 210, very carefully selected. So this is not about having a large data set, terabytes and petabytes, okay? This is about having a small data set, but a smart one, which you can mine the best possible ways. So his criteria included, were these: all rivers have to be 250 kilometers in length at least. It's somewhat of an arbitrary cutoff, obviously, but you have to put it somewhere. And they have to flow into the Atlantic, the Mediterranean Sea, the Black Sea, or the Baltic Sea. Why these? Okay, so according to his theory, the ancient Greek and Roman writers knew about those rivers only which flowed into those seas. Now, therefore, now there is a fair basis for comparing the ancient names with the modern names and see the rate of change. What is the rate of change in the river names? Okay? Now, he did a very good study of this, okay? The ancient names, by the way, were collected from these authors: Herodotus, Strabo, who wrote an entire book on geography, Pliny the Elder, who also did. Their early maps of Europe are here. And so comparing these ancient names found in these ancient writers' books with modern names, Pius could find a rate of change. And from that rate of change, in a statistical method, he could estimate that the majority of river names must go back in Europe to the Neolithic or even earlier. So that's very nice. So at least we know something about the age and what is the what we need to expect. Okay, some statistical way. Now, Neolithic or earlier, it already implies that it cannot be Indo-European names if we accept Maria Gimbutas's theory of Indo-European origins, often called the Kurgan theory, that is that Indo-European groups started to come into Europe around 3000 BC. Cannot be Scythian, certainly not for entire Europe. Herodotus wrote about the Scythians' arrival to the Europe, Carpathian Basin, for example. And it's probably cannot be Basque either, maybe Neolithic, but not earlier, as we said. So it still remains a question: what is the origin of the names, these Neolithic and earlier river names? Okay, well, we have to remind ourselves what happened in the Neolithic, right? Neolithic was the time of expansion from Anatolia of the agriculture. So it spread gradually from around 11,000 BC to 853, so on so. Very gradual spread, okay. Therefore, it makes sense to look at this area in the Near East, okay. It includes present-day Turkey, Syria, Lebanon, Caucasus area, and collect the names, the ancient river names that existed there. Now, these, if we can collect, can be compared with the modern names or the ancient names that we know from Europe. So we collected what we could, okay? And in present-day central Turkey, the oldest names that are recorded are thought to be Hattic in origin, and these include these names: Hulaya, Kummel, Maya, Marashantia, so and so. And these are presumed to be Hattic in origin and recorded in Hittite sources. Assyrian river names in this area. Orontes was one of them. And in Lebanon, Canaanite, Adonis is a river. So these are Hattic, pre-Indo-European, Assyrian, Canaanite, Semitic branch of Afro-Asiatic. So these are possible sources, and of course these could go back even earlier. This is just the earliest record of these names. Now, so what European river names could be used? We could use all the 210 from the earlier study of Piust, but we added 8 river names because somehow this 250-kilometer cutoff was a little bit arbitrary looking, and it also overlooked some truly ancient river names. Okay, so in the Basque region, Aragon and Orga. In the Etruscan area, the longest river is Arnus River. This is just barely missed the cut. And some other rivers. Rioni, for example, is a river flows into the Black Sea. This area has been visited by the ancient Greeks. So it was known, this river in Georgia. It simply missed the cut because Georgia is somehow doesn't count to Europe. It's south of the Caucasus. So that's why it was missing, but it's still a little bit arbitrary, I think. And a few others, okay. Volga, yes, they knew about that too. So Strabo wrote about the Volga too. So just added 8 more, okay? Now, the next thing is to look at what can we do to group all the river names together, because the names can change slightly over time. Certain sound changes are quite common in the names. For example, these are b, bilabial pair. The, it's a dental, plosive dental pair. So these are common changes in all the European languages, and so on in the other groups too. G, k, h is also a pair. LR, very close sounds too. And the fricative sounds S, Z, sh, j, z. Okay. So these we group together and we concentrate on the river names in each group only instead of dealing with separately, because that would be too many groups. And with this grouping, now we can look at river names which have to have somehow this form V1, C1, V2, C2, where C1 and C2 are consonants, and V are vowels or just the empty string. So you could have one of them an empty string and 2 consonants together, okay, for example. With this, we could organize in a table or the groups. And the groups can be marked by one of the river names that we would like to test. For example, Adonis can be considered to belong to the D-N group because the first consonant is D, the second consonant is N. So these two belongs to this group and that group, the 2 consonants respectively. And same thing with the other groups all over. Now, they already show some pattern. So for example, in this column and this, there's no ancient river names somehow. Okay, so now we can do the test. Okay, this is where we compare everything with from the Near Eastern with the European names. Okay, and we have found in the first group, Hulaya group, these are ancient names in the first. Actually, this is the rank in terms of length. This is the name by ancient writers, and this is the current name. And same thing with the other group, the ancient name, current name. And we see that there are quite a few in each group. Okay, so these really exist. And Marashantia is another name which exists in these ancient names and these more modern names, okay, and so on with the 2 more Hattic names, Shamura and Sharia, which itself groups together with Zulia, and so we have all of this, and it's interesting to see that these are distributed all over Europe. So there's a wide distribution for most of them. We could find the ancient name of the Rhine and modern names. Albis, which was the ancient name of Elbe. And these 2, okay. It's Arabo in Latin, Raba in Hungary, and Arnus in Latin, Arno today in Italy. And the name of Adonis, this is, of course, can be connected with the Danubius or the Danube, okay, where we are now, even in Budapest, and also these names, Tanais, which is the ancient name of Don River in Russia, but also because we group together B, N, M, Tiberis, Tonsos, Tibiscus, Tamesa, Thames in England, which flows through London, and Tanarus, okay, another river in Italy. So there's quite a lot of these, okay. And finally, there was one more river which we consider. This is an ancient name too, recorded some of these ancient names, okay. Araxes, it's in Caucasus Mountains. And this is very interesting, the arc, or changing to G. So there's Argianis in Greece, and these are all names here, okay. Here is the picture of the river. It's actually quite deep canyon, old river. So now let's do some summary of these things. So statistics shows that we had this distribution of names. Out of the 218 names, we have found 9 in this group, 6, 8, 10 in other groups, so total of 33 in the first column. Then here 5, and in the last one 39. So that means really that 35.3% of the modern names can be connected from Near East and Caucasus area. And actually a much higher percentage of the ancient names that are preserved, because this includes all the names which are more modern. Now, all right, so we have looked at the Near East, okay? I also said I will look at the African names. How many toponyms are in Africa? Millions, okay? So maybe not terabytes and petabytes of data, but certainly a million could be listed of all the toponyms through history. So I didn't look at all of those. I was thinking about what should be really significant, okay? Imagine that we have a group of people who come from Africa to Europe. And they are the first group to do so, and bring with them a language by which they name mountains or rivers. So, where could they come through? Where could they arrive from? They could arrive through the Strait of Gibraltar, right? They could arrive through the Eastern Mediterranean or through Sicily. Now, here at the Strait of Gibraltar, there is, of course, the Gibraltar mountain, but it's itself not an ancient name. It's Arabic in origin, more recent after the Arabic invasion. This seems the other side more ancient, Abil. In Sicily, and this has been recorded in Strabo, so it is ancient. In Sicily, the highest mountain is Nibrod, also recorded by Strabo. And so, passing through here, it's likely that they also named this mountain in Sicily. And in Eastern Africa, the best way to go is along the Nile River, obviously. And along the Nile River, the last significant mountain, where there was also an ancient town, is Abydos. And so they had to go through these three if they wanted to come to Europe this way. So really there are these three channels. Therefore, it makes sense to focus attention on these three names: Bir, Nebrod, Abydos. And we can analyze these also by looking at all the names of mountains which have the BL pair in them. And it's not only in Morocco, in Africa, but also some of the ancient names that we could find in Europe. Ampelos or Belos, Pelion, Follow. And these are mostly preserved. Some other places also have similar names of more recent, or not recorded in ancient times at least. For the group of Nebrod in Sicily, we can associate that with Bertiscus in Thessaly, Greece, Parthenion, also in Greece, Platamodes, and Tifrestos. This may be a compound here. And also some other names. And finally, Abydos. We can associate that with quite a few names. For example, in Spain, Idu Beda or Ospeda. So the Beda, Peda could be simply meaning mountain, okay? And this is some kind of Idu mountain or Oros mountain, okay? Pedalion, Pidna, Sarpedon, Hymettos, Amodos, even Amodos. This is the only example I give which is recorded in Strabo, and it is presently Himalayas, MD, but ML. Okay, DL change is also possible sometimes. And perhaps around here, the Carpathian Mountains, the PAT could be simply mountain, car could be something else. There are also a few other things here in this region, which I just listed for the audience's interest, okay? Madachon is another thing, and even Buddha Mountains, where we are here. This may be related. Now, okay, so we have all of these data compared and collected, but now we would like to have some kind of analysis what happened with linguistics, okay? So what languages can be associated with these toponyms, okay? So that at least survive, okay? So it's a quite difficult task, okay? We have to look at many languages in Africa too, but we can see, and ancient European names also. So the BL group could be associated with words like pella in Greek, which means simply stone or rock. Palu also means pile in Finnish. Apata in the Yoruba language in Niger. It also means rock. Bato, Filipino language, means rock, so it's very ancient. If you're interested in perhaps some very ancient proto-language, which some linguists are working on, then this could be among the very ancient words that maybe a proto-language which includes many language families could contain. So, Bad, Sumerian, means wall. Kurbad in particular means mountain top. Buddha means sharp picket. Pati means, in Mansi language, go down to the river from a mountain. Proto-Albanian Budja, lip end, edge bank, stitch rock. Pitna, stone, hill rock. Petra, stone, blat. In Maltese language means rock. Burta in Somalian means hill. Bredo means in Croatian hill also. So there's a lot of things, okay? Very, very ancient looking group of names. Tends to be rock, hill. So we can say, because of the Somalian and Yoruba examples from Africa, and also in Burundi we find mountains that they should come from Africa, these mountain names, okay? There's a Sumerian occurrence. This may also come from Africa originally, so it may not originate there. And that's very surprising. So we can look a little bit at the prehistory of North Africa. So desertification is a regular occurrence, and it's a major cause of migration to Europe. There's a 41,000-year cycle of wetness and dryness of the Sahara. So that means about 4000 BC was the last start of desertification. And this is associated with the migration of Afro-Asiatic language families to the Nile Valley and Arabic Peninsula, and also Somalian maybe, in our example. And the previous, before that, desertification had to be started around the 45,000 BC. And this may be associated with other language families, including the Kirundi and Yoruba languages, which belong to the Niger-Congo language family. Okay? So they are now in Central Africa, below the Sahara, but they could have spread all through the Sahara before that period of desertification. Another interesting thing, okay, I don't bring in a lot of genetics, but some genetical traces can be found of these migrations from Africa, in particular the mitochondrial DNA haplogroup, which is labeled E1b, is shown here with very high concentration along the North African coast, around 80%. And you see in Europe the highest concentrations are in southern Italy, including Sicily, and in Albania and some parts of the Balkans, okay? And that means or suggests a migration from Tunisia to Sicily along southern Italy, maybe across here this strait, and to Albania in this area here. And that's a genetic trace. We can look at other traces too. It is supporting this migration theory. For the river names, it's a little bit harder to find the etymologies, but we could find a few which are very interesting, and these include the Hulaya River, seems to be related to the word kala, so hul, or hal in Hungarian. This is a river full of fish, right? So this could be that meaning. Mar Shantia may be related to Puro in Finnish, means simply creek. Or it may be related to Mart, which means steep waterfront. And interestingly, the ending of Hattic river names tends to be always in ya. So Hulaya, Marashantiya, and so on so. And that may be related to Joki in Finnish, which means river, or Jo in Hungarian, which also means river, okay? And finally, Adonis, which is said to be Canaanite, okay? So it's in Semitic languages. Adon means Lord. So these could be identified as some of the meanings behind the names. And as I said, the last one is of Semitic origin. And the Hattic is, if these are considered, these are Finno-Ugric languages, Finnish and Hungarian in particular, so it may belong to the Finno-Ugric language family. Okay, this is one theory. So if you look at, let me try to summarize everything that we did in one map, if it's possible to summarize in one single map. There could be African migration from very ancient times, okay? Maybe starting 45,000 years ago or earlier. There could have been an agricultural expansion that's about 12,000 years ago, gradually going each arrow maybe 1,000 years, okay? And there was a faster nomadic agricultural expansion from the Ukrainian, Russian steppe areas. This may be associated with the Indo-Europeans. This around 3000 BC or so, according to Maria Gimbutas's theory. And I think some of these languages, which are a little bit odd in Europe, a little bit unusual, these may be kind of the possible refugee areas for where languages different from Indo-European survive. Today, Basque, Uralic languages mostly here, Hungarian here, Caucasian languages here, below, mostly below the Caucasian mountains, and Etruscans, which of course are extinct now, but was recorded in ancient times. Okay, and so there's a conclusion now, and that is we have shown that many of the mountain names originate from Africa, likely from hunter-gatherers in the ancient times, 45,000 BC. Many of the river names seem to come from the Near East and Caucasus and brought in by farmers. Probably the hunter-gatherers dominated the mountains and the farmers the river valleys. Eventually, each group accepted the names used by those who lived there. Okay? Kind of the idea that you have the right to name the place where you live, and we will accept your terminology. So when we started, and this is very important to say, that there is distinction between the two, because earlier research did not distinguish between these two layers, a mountain layer, which could be more ancient actually, the surviving mountain names, then the river names, which could be later development. I mean, yes. Farmers' river names may have been god names. Some of them seem to be like that, like Adonis, which means Lord, okay. Whereas the mountain names seem to be meaning originally rock or hill in their original African languages. So there's also a dichotomy in that as well. So that's basically it. And I have some references and further reading. So I have put together some other words which seem to link into a language family or group within the Finno-Ugric language family, the Minoan, Hattic, and Hungarian languages. Okay, this has been published quite recently. Other references, I leave it to the paper. Please take a look at that as well. So thanks for listening, and I'd be glad to answer any questions. Thank you.
That means Hattic is Hittite, yeah?
Excuse me?
Hattic is Hittites. The Hittic nation disappeared.
Yes. The Hattic language and people disappeared, although I think no people completely disappeared. They just blended into the invading later group, the dominant group. So genetically speaking, everyone in Europe tends to have very ancient genes, okay, no matter what languages they speak. We have some of the hunting-gatherer ancestry, and we have in every population some of the agricultural ancestry, no matter of what language we speak. But the Hattic in particular was in central Anatolia, and it was before the Hittites arrived. The Hittites are known to be the first Indo-Europeans in that area. And they have had a very interesting relationship with the Hattic people. The Hittites basically adapted a lot of things in their language from the Hattic, including many of the names for gods, river names, because they don't have Indo-European etymologies, and a lot of things. And they recorded some prayers, some sayings of Hattic in the Hittite sources, where they say, now the Hattic priests speaks Hattili, okay, the Hattic language. And then it's very interestingly a few lines, maybe a very short myth, which is recorded, and that's it. So it's only partially known, but it is known actually. So you can try to test its grammar and compare, as I did. Some of the grammatical comparison and some of the words you can test and compare, and so you can find parallels.
Sorry,
yes.
Then I continue. Sorry.
Yes, yes, sure.
How do we know how people have been spelling out words in the past?
How do we know?
How do we know?
What?
How they have been spelling words? Did they really say Buddha, or said they Buddha, or something like that? How we know it?
How do they set things?
How we know that this was a spelling?
How do you spell?
Pronunciation. What kind of pronunciation they have been using? How do we know? Because of it, there were no written sources.
Oh, there are written sources. The Hittite sources are written.
Yeah, but we don't know how they pronounce it.
They do. The linguists do. At least they claim they do. But the way they do is that they compare all the Indo-European languages, and there are some processes of change all throughout the Indo-European languages, including German and Greek, and they see that they reconstructed Proto-Indo-European from all the Indo-European languages, including Hittite, and they think Hittite is quite close to this Proto-Indo-European. So they have a reconstruction method, and they know. With ancient Greek, we are even closer to understanding it, because Greek has also such a long recorded history of written sources. But Strabo, for example, recorded can be read in Greek, and can be figured out how they may have said that, or at least Strabo pronounced it when he heard it. Maybe the natives pronounce it a little bit differently, I don't know, but that's how Strabo recorded it all throughout Europe.
And I was waiting all the time for the link to data mining.
For the data mining is the comparison. So it's a smart data mining. It's not neural networks. Okay? It's not neural networks. It's not like that. Okay? But it is a data mining in the sense that you do these correlations, and then you put together the data that way. Okay? It is a little bit unusual, and it's also not the usual techniques. We had to develop techniques that are a little bit new, but geared towards linguistics, because the neural networks techniques are not very good for linguistics. At least I don't know how they could be used. Deep learning.
Neural is anyway also stupid learning.
Excuse me?
Neural networks is stupid learning. You don't have an explanation. You are somehow putting a network, and then you say, okay, fine, this is my discovery.
Yes. I have used neural networks very well for other problems, and they work very well, but not in this case. I don't know how to use that machine learning techniques here. Yeah, there's another question, please. Yes. And
is it possible to use the same technique to a country or a region? region that speaks a kind of Indo-European language, but it is not the Indo-European in the sense that you speak in Europe. They have a different alphabet, but use that technique to find out the origin of their language or the people came from. Because, for example, Sri Lanka, they are migrants from India.
Okay, okay.
Some time back. But there were also some original people, but there is always a dispute about this
Okay.
migration.
So I believe the groups, okay, so the sound groups that we put together are generally applicable for other languages. These sounds change to each other in many languages. The k and the g, okay, the h, the ha. The reason is that simply the way we pronounce it, they are very similar, the way the tongue is in the mouth and so on, so on, so. So these are generally applicable, and I believe you can apply it to languages in India or Asia or Americas, okay? It's generally applicable. Thank you.
But still you have to make the subset of, collect the, this type of...
The toponyms have to be collected, yes, yes. Now, some of the problems, for example, I love to do the same thing in the Americas, okay? But how long can we go back in recorded names, okay? And it's a very interesting mixture with some of the names are obviously Native American Indian in origin, including the name of my state, Nebraska, okay? And the major city, Omaha, and so on and so. But of course, many are English in origin, okay? But the type of interesting comparison that Carsten Pues could do about looking at the rate of change, it's difficult to do because these Nebraskan toponyms don't go back more than 200 years, okay, recorded. So it's harder to change. I suppose we have to be careful. So in terms of wider applicability of this method, we have to be careful to assume that the rate of change in names is the same in other continents and regions as it is in Europe. So here we could do a very specific study of the rate of change, very statistical, nice model, where there was a proof about the rate of change, and therefore you could extrapolate backwards to the Neolithic and earlier. So very nice. It's hard to do in other things, but I believe, in particular in India, you should be able to do it. Himalayas was mentioned as a name that was recorded even by Strabo and other writers in Europe, so it was so famous even from a distance. But in India's sources themselves, they must have a lot of mountain names, recorded a lot of river names, and that would be very interesting to mine as well. Because India has a very long and recorded history as well.
And also
Yes.
250 different languages.
Yes, yes. So that's why it is interesting to ask the question. Out of this, so many languages, 250, okay, didn't even know that, okay, a lot of languages, which is ancient, which is the group which gave really the names of the biggest rivers and mountains.
But in the history, they have also integrated some European names because Dutch, English, and Portuguese have been traveling through, colonizing, so they were also integrated. So there is a big
Yes.
soup of all kinds of...
Yes, yes. Just like in Nebraska, my state I come from now. It's a lot of English names, and next it's very peacefully together with Native American Indian names. Okay, the maps don't care. Okay, about anything. Okay, they just record all the names. Yes, please.
Thank you for the talk. I was just wondering, the beginning you defined some kind of similarity function with these consonants, vowel, consonants, vowel.
Yes, yes.
Did you experiment with some others, or this was, I mean, to me it seemed like an ad hoc, but maybe it's based on some linguistics
Yes,
rules.
yes. Okay. That's a good question, okay? Maybe I was a little too fast about that, but many linguists have found that the consonants really dominate. The vowels are less important in the changes, preservation of the ancient form. So the consonants don't change as much. If they do, then you can get a completely different names, whereas vowel changes are all too common, and it's dialectical in many languages, very easily changed. The second thing is concentrating the first two consonants. Is important. First of all, it gives a nice comparison framework, always the first two consonants, okay? Second, there could be an ending, which is some kind of conjugation. For example, a possessive form, or some kind of compound, or something like that. And that complicates the analysis. And the beginning is usually the most solid thing. There are a few exceptions I made. For example, the Spanish names, Oros Peda and Idu Peda. It's obvious that the Peda is the stable part, which means mountain. And the beginning is something else. What kind of mountain? So, with a few exceptions, the beginning is the important, and the consonants are important, and linguists say so. And that's their analysis focus always that I have seen myself. Good questions, thank you.
More questions? And others will be happy to have now the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Okay.
And thanks a lot, Peter.
It's a pleasure to be in this group, and enjoy the rest of the conference. I will be still here, and if you have any questions during the breaks, please let me know. Thank you.